Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. In this episode, we'll be discussing if it's rude to talk while watching a movie at home. At your own home. A listener topic on Superman 1 and 2. And our main discussion topic this week is why do we struggle so much with reboots or remakes that change characters we love? Why can't we just accept change? Let's get on with the show. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today are my fellow hosts, John Davenport.
Hey, buddy. How you doing today?
I'm okay. Troy Heinrichs.
Are these tights too big? Do I need to wear different tights? No tights?
Trunks. No trunks? No trunks?
Tights, trunks, doesn't matter.
No trunks.
It's all constricting.
And again, Amanda Sink couldn't be here. I promise she's still on the show. I promise. This is all her. It isn't us. I don't know what
she is in the show because we talk about her every single week.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll stop talking about her. Then she'll show up.
She's like the fourth chair that's just here but not here.
No, she's the fifth Beatle at this point.
Damn. Shade throne.
Jesus. Remember, you can always find more information at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Join our Facebook group, The Hollywood Outsider, or we're on Twitter at @BuyPopcorn. Again, it's thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Oh, guys. We're going to talk about change. Do you guys struggle with change? Like in life?
I don't know how to count, so carrying around all those coins sucks.
Well played.
Jesus Christ.
Well
that was
played.
like the worst dad joke.
It was on the tip of my tongue. You beat me to it. I was like, screw you, John. Now I got to talk about the real thing, damn it.
I fear change. I do at times struggle with change. Not all the time, but there are just times where I just want things to be okay.
Yeah, change is inevitable, and it's the only way you grow. I just wish that, much like costumes in theater, like there was a quick change sometimes.
I love change. Love it. Don't get me wrong. I love uniform. I like, you get into a routine. I like some things that I like a routine with, but man, change is never a bad thing. And not never, it's usually not a bad thing, but people are like petrified of it. Every time you mention anything changing, they freak out. No, it's gotta be the same. I need it the same as I've always known it.
Are they freaking out because it's not the same, or are they freaking out because there's been too many times where they've seen somebody come in with their quote unquote vision of something, and their vision is caca?
I mean, that's possible. Possible. And some of the scenarios where change is part of it, sure. You're like, we've been down this road.
Yeah, we talked about Shyamalan, right? Last week, changing the ending of the movie from the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was caca. But 90% of what people are complaining about is literally complaining about their idea of somebody else's work. And you can't change it because you'll ruin their experience and their
It's true.
love for the whatever. That's why they don't want to change, because they can't see it any other way.
That's going to be a good time. We should probably just get to it. Well, before we get there, though, TV manners. Like, it's Valentine's Day week, right? That just happened. So therefore, we're having a very short episode. It's not going to be very long. Just a topic and a couple little things. But I want to know, does it bother you if you're watching TV at home and someone keeps talking?
Oh, I got a lot.
Okay.
I've got a lot.
All right, I'll be back in a half hour.
Yeah, you might as well pull over. If you're listening to this car in the car, you might as well pull over. If you're related to me, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're really related to me, I'm not talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, did you just say, yeah, definitely, I'm talking about you, while also I'm not talking about you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I feel like it was like 3 minutes and you made no damn sense. All right, continue. Go ahead.
We've made these comments about how I just spent the last year and a half of my life.
We haven't made shit, John. You made these comments every episode. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said I.
No, you said we. You said we've talked about how I've lived on the side of a mountain.
Maybe it was
and
the
I really
royal
just
we,
didn't
Aaron.
like it. And I was on the side of a mountain. And boy, by God, I was on the side of a mountain. Did you know I was on the side of a mountain?
Maybe-
My God, I was
maybe
on the
it's
side of a
the royal
mountain.
we.
Wasn't near the
Aaron,
beach. I was
just
near the
said
beach. I used to live by the beach, but I wasn't. I was on the side of a mountain.
We don't like it when you talk over me like that. So we shall continue telling our story.
You're not Amanda.
So
You don't get that pass.
So I do have come from a family of talkers over movies and or television shows or whatever it is, and it's a whole family thing. But there are people in our family who like to talk through the movie as if they're going to predict what's going to happen next. And
I hate that.
most of the time they're wrong. And it makes me crazy because they're absolutely wrong. It's not even like Troy wrong, where Troy goes so far left field that you kind of want him to be right. It's just wrong because it's just wrong. And then the times in which they're right, they're so freaking proud of themselves as if they've been right the entire time. It is infuriating.
Do you mean like they're like guessing at what's going to happen? So they're constantly talking throughout trying to guess what's going to happen. Then they once in a rare occasion get it correct. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly it.
That's annoying.
So annoying. Can't stand it.
All right, I relinquish the floor now.
Here's what I can't stand. And this happens to me regularly. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone in particular. I'm just saying it happens to me regularly.
I'm almost feeling attacked.
No, regularly. I do not like when people talk while other people are talking. And I feel like some people in my general vicinities only talk during a movie or a TV show when other people are freaking talking. And I don't understand, like, their lips are moving, words are coming out. Why is now the appropriate time to ask me a question about what they're saying? Also, I'm a big fan. I say this, and I know I can be a bit dickish, but I'm always like, I don't know. I'm watching the same show you are. I also have that retort always at the ready. Those things annoy the hell out of me. Wait until it's quiet. There's music swelling in the background. There's some dramatic event where people just stop. They hush tones for a little bit. But why, as soon as the conversation begins, do the questions come out in my general area? I don't understand it.
And they're talking to your good ear, right? They're not talking to the bad ear where you can barely hear out of. They're talking to your good ear.
That's true.
Right?
I actually do have a bad ear. Yeah.
He does. It's funny because I feel like that's a phenomenon. It must be something in the air that combines people of these particular characteristics, because that same thing happens in my house where there's just, complete non-attention to the art form that is being displayed on the screen. You have to experience it like it's like a Mona Lisa and just enjoy the moment instead of turning around going like, what just happened?
Would that be a moment, Lisa?
It's so bad. That was good. I liked it.
That was good.
Sorry.
But no, the reason why they're asking the question is because they were on their computer or on their iPad or on their phone. It's like, watch the program. And then you won't ask the question.
I really have a problem with if I'm watching just like I don't care about this show or I don't care about this movie. Okay, fine. Like it's something I've seen before or whatever. But if I'm actually trying to watch something like I haven't seen it before, it's new, or if I'm reviewing it, because I get screeners all the time, those I usually just go downstairs because I can't stand. I have to focus to review them properly. Otherwise, I feel like I'm doing everybody involved in that movie a disservice. But if I'm watching something at home on my TV and it's something I want to see, I don't want to see a phone. I don't want to have a conversation. I just want to watch it. I'm very invested, whether I'm in a theater or at home, and I want to see how it plays out. And contrary to what you might think, I'm not watching TV 24/7. So when I watch something, I want to pay attention to it.
I'm choosing to spend this hour or 2 hours to soak in this entertainment art form, and I don't want you ruining my 2 hours.
I'm not saying so-and-so would ruin it, but, well, okay, when you ask me, when people are talking, you're ruining it for me, for sure.
The minute I hit the pause button, it's over. I'm not even going to finish.
Oh, really? You're just completely out of it?
The experience, I was in it. I was like here, like in my blinders, and then all of a sudden was like, whoa, there's the whole world again. Frick.
And you've got kids, so there's a lot of hyperactivity, I'm sure, going on where...
Oh, no, they don't. They just stay in their dungeons and whatever and hide.
That's the way it should be.
It's specifically this, similar thing that you deal with on a regular basis.
I just don't understand it. And I feel like is it intentional? Is it just like trying to ruin our time? Is that what it is? Just trying to ruin our joy? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
I probably shouldn't say shitty things like, I'm watching the same show you are.
No, it's likely that they want to feel engaged with it, and that's their way of feeling engaged with what's going on in the show. That's what it is. They want to feel engaged with you because it's supposed to be a communal experience when you're watching with each other.
That's the key word right there. You're supposed to be watching it with me, not me watching it and explaining it to you because you weren't paying attention.
Oh no! See, that's the thing. Like, there should be a standing rule. If we're gonna watch something together, we're either gonna both be watching it, or you better be asleep. There's no you awake.
So what's the proper discipline?
Questions.
Can you? I mean, I know violence is not recognized. Can you throw a pillow at someone? Can you smack them in the head with a pillow? Is that acceptable?
I mean, you could cut them in their sleep, but they're not actually dying from
That's
that.
violence. I'm trying to get away from violence. I'm saying other solutions. Can I slap them with a pillow?
Well, throwing a pillow is still violent.
No, it's not. It's stuffed.
You whip something at somebody's head hard enough, it's gonna hurt
I
no
didn't
matter
say
what it's
whip
made out
it.
of.
I meant just like woo, poof.
Oh, see, you know what? You're talking about throwing stuff. There's no reason to throw anything if you're not going to put your best behind it. It's going to be a heater.
I'm going to go get a blanket and put the blanket over them, and I'm going to turn off the TV and go down to the other TV and rewatch the show.
That, you know what?
By myself.
Turn off. That's a solution. I turn off the heat. That's what I do. So I just freeze the house until people watch things the way that I want to watch them at all times.
No, but you know, I as somebody who likes watching things in a communal environment from time to time, there's a good time to do it and a bad time to do it. As long as there is a standing rule where your phone, if you're going to have a conversation with me like, oh my God, what just happened there? And you were paying attention, I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't know, dude. I just saw it too.
That's a good conversation while something's on. That's when you're both in the experience. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we put a fine point on what it is, and we're not just bitching about a certain somebody who we share homes with, or you guys share homes with.
No. It's very specifically.
No, it's anybody. Like I had watch parties
anybody.
at my house for The Last of Us, and it's like there was a new person that decided to come one time, and it was like, no, we are all here, and then the TV turns on, and you all disappear for 45 minutes, and then you just magically reappear at the end of the 45 minutes. But if you show up during that 45-minute period, we're going to have words.
Can't you just, I don't know. I mean, isn't there an apparatus in your home in which people can walk in and like put their phones all in a safe place where they're not constantly grabbing at the phones? I don't know, maybe a fishbowl kind of thing.
Nobody. I agree with you. I think that's like put them all in a basket like you do for concerts and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or zip baggy, whatever it is.
It's more the constant tapping on the computer while you're typing while the show is on, or the moving or squeaking the chair. It's like, just sit still 40 minutes.
I mean, I have to say that I'm a little bit guilty, especially, you know, as we're working on the half-hour power hour. I'm guilty of being on my computer while I'm watching the half-hour power hour, but it's because I'm writing my script as we're going. So as my viewing partner has to put up with me going click 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 as something comes up, and I want to make notes of it as we're watching the show. But again, I'm engaged in the show, and that's the whole reason why I'm doing that. I don't want to give anyone a hard time for being on their computer or being on their phone. However, unless it's an apparatus for you to further be engaged with whatever it is you're watching, put it away.
Like the reading the review, researching the actors.
Researching the actors. I can get behind all of those things where you're like, wow, where do I know this guy from? Oh, did you know he's also in Game of Thrones and he got slaughtered with somebody else's like hand or something? Yeah, I'm all for that.
Or my favorite is before we start this, let me just see how it ends.
What?
You're fired. You're absolutely fired.
So I know that if it's worth my time to sit here, and it's like, go away.
Do you know someone that says that? Is that a true thing?
I definitely know someone that says that.
They would not be invited to my house because I ain't chance anybody ruining anything for me. Nope.
What I'm getting out of this is that Choi's friends suck.
Just a few of them.
he's
Hey, wait a minute. Hey.
That was a full 5-second pause.
Our show is independently funded, therefore all the expenses are from our own pockets. And Patreon helps fans support their favorite podcast. You can also get the half-hour power hour and our monthly bad movie night unedited on their Patreon feed in your respective tier. So you can find it. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider. That's Patreon, patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider.
Those friends are awesome because they give us money.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of
the other ones,
one of our Patreon supporters, Jay Howard, had a topic he wanted us to discuss, and kind of leads into our group topic in a way. Some tiers you can suggest a topic for us, Patreon people, so join! And then you can make us talk about stuff you want to talk about. He would love us to discuss the 1-2 punch that is Superman 78 and Superman 2. So let's discuss.
Is it called Superman 78 now? Is that they had to change the title because people didn't understand it was called Superman?
It's pretty much what they've done is we have to refer to it as Superman 78 now.
Can we go back to where we said I don't like change? It was just Superman.
I refer to it as the idiotic one where he flies around the globe
Around
to
the
make
planet backwards, yes.
That's the dumb ending.
It's not the flux capacitor. It's Superman that makes time travel possible.
So what is there to discuss? I mean, Christopher Reeve, probably one of the best performances of superhero of all time. I would say top 5,
especially
probably.
those 2 movies.
Yeah, and those 2. Yeah, we're not including 3 in Quest for Peace.
We're not including 3. 4's even worse.
Come on now.
Nope. And to this day, the only actor I think to do a very good Superman and also a very good Clark Kent and make them separate characters. He's the only one I think that's done that.
That is very accurate. I don't think anyone. I think the way Cavill did it was because he wanted to make it different from Reeves and different from I can't even remember Brendan Roth's name. As far as other Supermans who did it on screen, like those 2 did it too similarly. So I think Cavill did it in a way that was different, but he did it so well. You understand when you see Superman and Clark Kent standing next to each other, you know they're the same person. However, they don't look anything like the same person.
They are 2 completely different characters. Like, from his performance, they are 2 different characters. And even George Reeves, right, in the old serials? He never brought that to life either. So it's Christopher Reeve. He's the only guy that's ever done it.
I still want to see Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum do an actual movie now that they're older and see if they would actually be really good at it. Because I thoroughly enjoyed Smallville for all 10 years.
I did too. Michael Rosenbaum was a great Lex Luthor.
Great. Lex Luthor.
He's probably one of the best Lex Luthors, honestly.
And Tom did great as Clark. Like I would have loved to have seen him finally like put the cape and tights and trunks and pants and...
I don't know about all that. But if you've seen him lately, it's not going to happen anytime soon. It's going to have to be quite the workout regimen. So 78 and Superman 2, that's what he wants to talk about. What do you guys think about these movies? I think the first one is great. Superman 2. If you didn't know, here's a fun fact. They shot a lot of Superman 1 and 2 together, and Richard Donner did not get along with the producers, if I remember right. So they brought in Richard Lester to co-produce. And then once that first movie was a hit, they went back to finish the sequel, but did so with Richard Lester instead. So despite Donner having completed like 70% of the movie or something like that, Richard Lester finished it. So Superman 2 has a lot of what Richard Donner shot, but also a lot of different stuff.
I thoroughly enjoyed Superman 1. I find it entertaining when I watch it. There's really nothing bad about it. It's just the time travel gimmick was a little bit of a stretch.
I hated that part. That was just a dumb... Because it's like, just use it every time. Every time there's a major catastrophe, you would just use it.
Right.
That was the worst bit of it because that's where it sort of really tests your ability to suspend your disbelief on it. And I couldn't do it. You guys couldn't do it. A lot of people probably couldn't do it with that one. I remember watching this one every single chance I got because I loved it so much. I remember Miss Tessmacher was probably my first crush, I think.
Aw. Well, with you, I probably shouldn't say that. It's probably like, ew. You probably got pervy.
What? No, I was not pervy that early.
Gene Hackman was such a great Lex Luthor.
Such a great Lex Luthor. I think the challenge with Superman 78 is that because of the time travel issue, it takes away the stakes, right? It's basically saying Superman can do everything and anything versus having to make a choice, right? Save one or save the other. And I think that maybe at the time it was necessary because like we're talking about Cold War, threat of nuclear, like Superman's going to make everything better and make us feel safe. You know, I think that's probably why they made the choice to go the way they did with the reset so he can save both things. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think it teaches anybody anything that's really superhero-ish, right? Superheroes leaders have to make tough calls and live with those choices.
Well, I think that movie, especially the first one, did a really, my opinion, a wonderful job of presenting why Superman is the way he is and who he really is. I mean, what he stands for, and how his moral center is dictated because of the fact that he was raised by wonderful parents who loved him and gave him a good moral center. And that's why he is the way he is. And he believes very much in doing the right thing at all times. That came across, I think, fantastically in that movie. It's a wonderful movie up until the end. It's just the end where I struggle with it. I love that movie until that. When he rescues Lois and the helicopter scene, that whole scene, that's a fantastic scene that I think is just wonderful. When he takes Lois for her first flight, I mean, it's just one of the most magical scenes in film. The score, John Williams' score is just absolutely fantastic. That theme, why that theme was not present in any of the Zack Snyder movies is a crime against cinema, as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
Maybe they retired it, like they retired football player numbers.
Well, how do you retire it? It's like, do you retire the Jaws theme? I mean, if you make a Jaws movie, it's got to have that theme, right? Even if you made one today, it has to have that theme.
But you heard that theme and you didn't think Superman. You heard that theme and you thought Christopher Reeve Superman.
No, I think Superman.
No, you think Superman. That is. It's hard to walk around and hear that song and be like, oh, that's Superman's song. It's nobody else's song whatsoever. You cannot make it anybody else's song. When they've used it in other movies to show that somebody has jokingly changed their position on something, it's because it hits the point so well that they've just changed their position on something, and it does everything right, that song right there.
But I get what Trey's saying. I think you were trying to say they were trying to separate it and didn't want to bring back, well, you're always going to be comparing Cavill's Superman to Christopher Reeve because it's not a fair comparison. They're different characters, right?
Yeah, which is also why when people like Man of Steel, because, he has to make a choice, right? Keep the city in one piece or destroy the hell out of the place. And that's why Batman gets all pissed off and fights him in Dawn of Justice, right? So, I mean, it's a completely different take that Snyder does from what Donner did in the first movie.
What'd you guys think of Superman 2, where you got Terrence Stamp and as Zod, which I think is way better as Zod than Michael Shannon ever wanted to be. I think Terrence Stamp was
great. Yeah.
For sure.
Terrence Stamp was amazing. He was just menacing and in control, and everything about Terrence Stamp was great in that.
And I think 2 is, I don't want to say it's better than 1. 2's got more action rather than just kind of setting up who Superman is and just doing some real miraculous feats. There's actually like heart to it and trying to like come to grips with who he is and why he is. But that's also the most boring part of the movie, when he's like walking to the palace and then he sits in the diner and it's like, oh my God, can we just have Superman come back and beat the crap out of people?
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
But you need that journey, but you need that journey story in a second movie. Right.
You need that journey because he needs to be reminded of why the world needs him. Because at some point he gets to a point where he's like, hey, I want my life, and my life is important. But then you have a clown car full of Kryptonians show up, and it's like, okay, no, I need to be here because I need to be the light versus all this darkness.
I loved Ursa. Was that her name? Zod's?
Oof, yeah.
The second one.
Ursa.
She was great.
We know John liked her.
I liked her character. She was just like a really cool, badass character. She was just great.
Oh, yeah. She was amazing. I thought everything about her was great. She's just the way that she messed with people. She was just so scary. I liked it so much.
Did you guys, either one of you ever see the Donner cut of Superman 2?
No.
Yeah. Well, what it does is it uses a lot of that footage. And unfortunately, some of it doesn't have great effects because it's whatever was filmed but that wasn't used. But there's a lot of changes. In Lester's Superman 2 cut, he has Superman hurling yet another bomb into space when Supes did it already in Superman 1. So that, in the Donner cut, the bomb that he threw into outer space in the first movie is actually what ruptured
the Phantom Zone.
The Phantom Zone, yeah. And there's other subtle changes. And Gene Hackman wouldn't do any reshoots without Donner. So there's more of him in Donner's version, which I think is kind of funny.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of that because actually Marlon Brando was supposed to be in Superman 2. He actually filmed scenes. So those scenes you actually see in the Superman 2 Donner cut. But he refused to let them go for the theatrical cut because he wanted to get paid because he was supposed to get 12%. I think it's 11 or 12% of the box office. And Warner Bros. Didn't want to pay him that for the second movie. And so he refused to okay his scene, so they changed it to Superman's mom. And then in the Donner cut, they worked out a deal with the estate that they could use that footage. So you actually can see that Marlon Brando footage in the Donner cut. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So Snyder, you ain't the only first one to get a cut with Superman. And also in Donner's version, Superman also flies around the planet again to rewind Lois' memory. True story. Did it again.
Okay, well that's
Go
not
find it. I'm sure it's on YouTube. You can find it. Okay, we are here with some reviews, and joining me for this part is Amanda Sink. So she is alive, and this is proof of life for those that have been wondering.
Hello.
What's been going on? You've been missing. We were going to put out an APB on you.
Lots of stuff, mostly work. And then my power randomly went out, and I figured out what happened. Someone crashed into the box that has the power nearby.
Coincidentally, right
So
before we recorded, it feels like it's set up.
Literally, it was 5:00 on the dot. Mind you, we were supposed to record at 5:15 Mountain Time, my time, and it was 5:00 on the dot, and all the power just like shut off. Everything shut off. I heard the electricity sizzle out of my house. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Aaron's going to literally murder me. But thankfully, I survived.
Everybody that's listening, you go ahead and you decide if you want to buy that story or not.
I sent you guys, okay, first of all, I sent you guys a
with
screenshot.
more reasons why they didn't show up to something over and over than this lady here. So
I sent you guys a screenshot that validated that my power was out in my area and not expected to return for 3 to 4 hours.
Okay. All right. Well, we're good to go now. So we're going to talk about some reviews. We've got Devil's Peak, and we've got season 4 part 1, right? Because they don't have the full part. And I'll touch on Titanic real quick. I do want to mention before we get into it. So Titanic, I saw the 25th anniversary of the movie. They re-released it. It holds up beautifully. My eyes, still one of the perfect films in the world. There's not many of them, and it's one of them. You can argue all you want, but I'm telling you, once Celine Dion starts singing, it's like, wow, Jack. And
they had that in 3D, right?
What's that?
They had that in 3D, right?
It was in 3D. That's the only part that I just don't care about. It just...
that's what turned me off to it, because I'm like, I'm not big on 3D. I know one of our, a friend of the show, Kyle Nolan, noreruns.net, I believe is his website.
Yeah, it's his website.
Always does a lot of really cool giveaways. But he won't watch it if there's not 3D. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, I don't think I'll watch it if there is only 3D.
Well, he'll watch
it.
Turn you off? He just prefers 3D. Like if there's a 3D showing, he will always go to 3D.
Yeah.
He loves the three-dimensional. And hey, some films work like that. Like the new Ant-Man feels like the kind of movie you'd want to see in 3D. There's so much going on. But Titanic, it wasn't shot that way. It wasn't made that way. There are a couple scenes where, okay, it works pretty well. Like when the guy falls off the boat and he bings. I mean, that's a pretty good 3D shot. But outside of that, it wasn't meant for 3D, and it doesn't carry over.
The boob scene, did you feel like they were really in your face?
Oh, they were popping. Yeah, they were there. That part, I was definitely paying attention at that part. I'm like, oh, yeah. Draw me like one of your French girls, Jack.
And you saw this with your wife, right? Which is why it's probably sentimental to you.
I mean, it's sentimental, but I love the movie, whether she's there or not.
I know. Look you can't ever just be soft and sweet and say something nice about you and your wife.
It's a perfect film. It's the first film I saw with my wife, but it was not on a date. She was actually on a date with someone else. So there's your short version of that story. Right.
That's what I was getting
So many people think that was our first date. I'm like, nope, sure wasn't. Just the first movie I saw with her, with someone else who lost. Just saying. Just saying. So that's Titanic. But let's get into... you want to do Devil's Peak or season 4, part 1 first?
We'll start with Devil's Peak because you saw that and it sounds really great. It's set in North Carolina's Appalachian Mountains, where an 18-year-old named Jacob McNeely is torn between appeasing his meth-dealing kingpin father and leaving the mountains forever with the girl he loves. It's based on the novel Where All Light Tends to Go by David Joy, and it was directed by Ben Young, starring Robin Wright, Billy Bob Thornton. I think it even has Brian Darcy James in here, which was cool too.
And Jack Earl Haley.
Jack Earl Haley. Yeah. So what was your overall going into this? It sounds like it's a bit of a thriller in some capacity. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like story-wise, we've seen a lot of this story before. Guy grows up in a crime-riddled family, wants out. There's a woman that he definitely is in love with, and he's hoping to get out with her. Mom's a drug addict, dad's a kingpin, that sort of thing. It's just more of the Appalachian twist on it, where, you know, it's a deadbeat area. There's not much to do in terms of making money, and they find an avenue by dealing meth. And so I mean, going into it, I didn't know what to expect, except the cast is pretty stellar. So I figured no matter what, the acting's going to be on par. And
it was, I assume.
Billy Bob Thornton never goes wrong, although I will say, stop dyeing your goatee. Looks pretty dyed.
He looks scary in this movie a little bit. Like there's a scene in the trailer where he's got like blood dripping out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. And I think it's Robin Wright who's like holding him or something. And he's just looking with this deadpan stare that feels like it could eat through someone's soul. So is he as intimidating as that scene throughout the entire film?
Yeah, well, just so you know, it's not Robin Wright holding him, but that is a scene in the movie. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton is a great actor, so he can command the screen, even though he's kind of a little guy in a lot of ways. Like, he's a very scrawny guy. There's something about him that just commands the screen, and when he feels like he's wanting to threaten someone, you feel threatened, and that's a sign of a very good actor, and he handles that quite well. Robin Wright has a smaller role. She's the drug-addicted mother of Hopper Penn's Jacob. And, you know, she's always stellar. She's just a wonderful actress. She has a very small role, but it's very impactful and carries a lot of the weight of the movie. The only acting, and Jackie Earl Haley is just, again, wonderful actor. He's playing a sheriff who is probably a little too in deep with Billy Bob Thornton's character. But he's, again, a stellar actor. He's always bringing it. Hopper Penn is he is the lead here. And he is Robin Wright and Sean Penn's son. So that's nice little, if you want a Nepo baby twist, I guess.
What?
Yeah, he is. And he's good in the scenes where it's him being scared. It's him trying to take action. It's him looking forward to leaving this town, those sorts of scenes. But when it gets really emotional, there's a few emotional scenes that really, really depend on him to pull the heartstrings, and he does not do well with those. That is where the movie does falter a little bit. It's in Hopper Penn's performance when things get really, really emotional. It doesn't dilute the movie, doesn't take me out of the movie, but it definitely was way less impactful when you're surrounded by that talent.
So what was it that about this film that you think made them being Ben Young, deciding to adapt this story into a film if it is one that has already been told before?
Well, the novel Where All Light Tends to Go is a very good book, and I think they wanted to adapt that. It's a movie you can make on a smaller budget. It's much more of a character piece. You know, it's all about these characters and where they're headed, and you know, Jacob realizing that his father, who's Billy Bob Thornton, is really not the most loving of men, and maybe it's time for him to get the hell out of here. He's never seen a beach. That's his dream. He just wants to see a beach. He wants to get away from this life, this world, these people, and you know, it's a story I think that is always impactful if it's told right, and for the most part, it's told right. Like I said, Hopper Penn is not great. He's just good enough.
Does this film leave you at any point with any, you mentioned emotional, but I don't know that that's in a positive, if there's like humor or really sweet moments, or is this the type of film where it's just dark and dour throughout the entire thing because of the type of content they're trying to talk about?
If there's jokes, I didn't hear any. So The only jokes that were being told were me, yelling at Billy Bob Thornton, like, "Stop dyeing that goatee, man! Stop it! It's so black. It's like Nick Cage with his hair. It's like nobody believes that your hair is that black anymore."
Be kinder to yourself, Billy Bob, is what we're saying.
Yeah, I've seen him with regular gray hair and stuff, and it actually suits his face.
Like that.
Yeah, he looks great like that. Just go with that, man.
Yeah. So if the full price of admission were $10, what are you giving Devil's Peak?
I give it $6. It's definitely worth a watch. I feel if it would have had a stronger lead in Hopper Penn, and it's nothing. He wasn't bad. I'm telling you, it's just those emotional scenes really would have elevated the film quite a bit. Also, you saw season 4, part 1, where we've got Joe back. Well, actually, now he's John, right? Because he's on the run. He's abroad. He's in London. He was looking for Marianne and Marianne. And he finds himself in a different scenario this year. It's not so much him stalking another woman, although there is some of that, but it's really someone is stalking him for the first time. And there's a bit of a whodunit going on. So, Amanda, what do you think about you? And are they dragging you out a little longer than it should? Or is it still something that's must-see TV?
I think had they not changed the direction for this season, we all probably would have been like, after Love, we're done. Love was a lot. Love was draining. Love was incredibly dramatic. Love was crazy.
Exhausting.
And so that entire third season, exhausting is a word I would for sure use. So since we kind of had that moment and we got out of it, we escaped Love, getting into this story where he's being stalked, where
Does
Joe is
anyone
being stalked.
ever really escape Love? You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Do you really ever? No, probably not.
It's always hunting you down.
But yeah. So I really like that there's part him still trying to stalk someone. So he's still trying to find Marianne. He's still trying to, he has a one true love, if you will, which is always so fleeting with Joe. It changes on a whim. But I love the aspect and the notion that someone is hunting him down. And so he has to kind of like, what is that? LeBlanc from Knives Out?
Oh, Benoit Blanc?
Benoit Blanc. That's his name. He had to like Benoit Blanc himself to try to figure out who's after me. Why are they after me? And so this kind of like mystery tale that we're now focused on through Joe's eyes, aka John's eyes, I think lends itself to being able to continue the story. But I do hope that at some point we kind of see this come to a close, whether it's the end of season 4, part 2, or it's a final season 5. I'm not sure. But I like this season so far. I think it gives us enough difference between the prior.
And Penn Badgley, once again, crushing it as Joe/John.
Oh my God, always. You know what? Here's the one thing I'm going to say about this season. And this is maybe a whole completely different topic that we could have for like our From the Outside In topic. But Penn Badgley actually reported that he requested that there be no sex scenes because now he's a married man and he wants to kind of honor that, and fidelity is important to him and all of these things.
I saw that. I think it's kind of weird in his profession, but okay. That's his right.
It is weird in his profession. Isn't that the thing? Like, okay, so let's take just maybe 30 seconds to talk about that. That's part of your job. And while I'm not saying that it's necessary that we have some of the fully fledged sex scenes that existed in the show, for you to wait until season 4 to complain about it and make like a big deal about it, and then see the alteration, the trajectory change for the story, I just feel like that's weird because you're changing the character at that point too. You know, we only know of the character what we see on screen. So sure, maybe we don't need as aggressive and lengthy of sex scenes as seasons 1 through 3 had, but the quote unquote sex scenes in this season are like, he's not even the same dude. Like, he doesn't even kiss somebody. It feels like he's resistant to that. So I feel like that affected his performance too, and the way that I see this character, because it changed mid-show.
Yeah, it's a really complicated. It definitely would be a good topic to discuss at some point, more in depth. But I have heard that, and that he approached the creator about that, or the showrunner about that, and Sierra Gamble, and they agreed to it. So they've cut way back. I don't know if it's completely cut out or not, but yeah, they've cut way back. And I don't know. I mean, if this was, I don't know, Magnum PI, I think it wouldn't be that big a deal. But You is really about a romantic stalker. So it's kind of an odd choice. And I've only seen 2 episodes. You saw the whole first half of the season, but I've only seen 2 episodes. And I do notice less, but it could be because of the direction of the season. But if it continued that way through the end of the series, it would be a little weird. I agree. I think it's a much deeper topic because, it's also just because this is his job doesn't mean that he should, have to
be subject to those types of things.
Sure. I mean,
sure.
It doesn't mean that you can't have your own morality and, that stuff's important too. Your sense of self is important. But I also feel like you signed on to it, and I understand your life changed, but the character
he was
shouldn't.
Married before the show started, though. That's the other thing. That's what's kind of like
waited till he had enough power to make the request, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say because it's just kind of frustrating from like a viewer's perspective.
He might have always been bothered by it.
Yeah, he probably was. I'm sure.
But overall, here's what I'll tell you. You tell me if you agree. The first 2 episodes that I saw, I'm just like, your narration is exhausting. It's getting to the point where it's almost like he's talking the entire episodes. And, because if you've never seen You, Joe Goldberg, he's a stalker. So you're living through his head. So he basically narrates the entire show or a lot of it. But it feels like to me that it's all narration this time. And it's almost excessive. Now, maybe it's just in my head. Maybe you don't feel that way, but that's how I felt.
I'll say that it doesn't bother me as much as I think it bothers you. But I have noticed that there seems to be an increase in his thought process versus maybe more dialogue on screen that we're used to. I think there's so much in the season that has shifted in so many ways that it almost feels like an entirely different show. I understand we're kind of growing and expanding from the original stories, and that development is honestly probably good because otherwise it would just be Joe stalking a new lover every season, and maybe that would get boring. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know, because so far I've enjoyed all of the seasons up to this point. But I do notice that there's more of him and having an internal dialogue more so than the percentage of time we have him interacting and having dialogue with other people.
Right. Okay. Well, this first half of the season, they broke it into 2 parts. So what do you give, if $10 full price admission, what do you give this first half of You, season 4?
I'm going to give it $6.50. I don't dislike it. 6 is a very good number. That means you're above average, right? 5 out of 10 would be right in the middle. So it's still well above average, but I don't think it's as strong as its prior seasons thus far. And that may be because I'm still adjusting to the change in the direction, even though I like it. It is an adjustment. So what about you from what you've seen so far?
I've only seen 2 episodes, so I don't think that's fair, but probably around 6.5. I mean, I'm still enjoying it, but the narration was getting a little exhausting.
Sure.
But we'll see. But the second half does come out March 9th, so it's coming very soon. So you can definitely look for that. How do you like that splitting of the seasons?
I was just going to talk to you about that. I'm glad you brought it up because I was thinking about it. And one of the biggest complaints people have with Netflix is that there isn't enough publicity and there's not enough water cooler conversation, quote unquote, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this gives them the opportunity to really ramp things up because what you'll see when you conclude the first part, if you watch it right now and don't wait until the second part, is that we're left on a bit of a cliffhanger. We get some information that shakes us a little bit and we're like, hold on. And then you're like, I gotta wait. So I think that that's good because it's going to create the momentum that Netflix needs with some of these larger shows that they've been doing recently. They've done it with Stranger Things, with Ozark. They've done it with this show, obviously, now. And I think that that's good for Netflix. Mm-hmm. I think people are just going to have to, I think we'll see it split opinion on it from audiences because people are so used to being able to binge on Netflix particularly, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you still are, though. I mean, it's just giving them more rather than releasing weekly, which is really what gets people conversing about anything. You know, it doesn't really happen when you binge it. Yeah, Last of Us. I mean, it just builds every single week. you would do the same thing, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I mean, the show's had success, obviously, but it only lasts for like a week or two. So they're just trying to extend that life. And I get that. They got to change the model up if they're going to keep people invested and keep people coming back. Plus, you don't want them to just subscribe for 1 month, then cancel, and then come back in 2 years when the new season comes out. So interesting. I think they're going to start doing this a lot more. A lot more.
I think so too, especially with their more profitable selections.
Yep. Wednesday's going to come out on Tuesday and Friday. That's how it's going to work.
That'd be funny. You know what? They would probably do really, really well with that show if they released it on Wednesdays every week. That'd be really smart marketing too.
Maybe. But people will freak out because they don't want to see Netflix going week to week, even though I'm good with it, because the only shows I'm really watching anymore are shows that are week to week. I don't binge much anymore. It's just, I got things going on, man. I didn't mention Devil's Peak, exclusively in theaters February 17th, comes to on demand February 24th. So you know what dates that's available if you want to see it.
Awesome.
All right, Amanda. Well, thanks for showing up.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm here to do what I can for 20 minutes.
You sure are. All right. Well, thank you. Now let's get to our From the Outside In topic. We're going to talk about change. And Amanda got to avoid all this conversation, which got a little too honest. And apparently I'm sitting there talking about real honest opinions while these other idiots are only talking about, well, Transformers should only be voiced by Peter. You'll hear it. It's just remember, I went deep. I go deep.
Because you follow the format.
And because I open myself up to the people like an idiot. Maybe I'm the idiot. There's the smarter ones. They're like, I ain't getting canceled. All right, let's get to our From the Outside In topic. Okay, so we're back to change. I want to talk about why we struggle with changes to our favorite movies and TV shows. Game of Thrones changed something? Readers freak out. Last of Us expanded their game to focus on Bill and Frank? People lost it. Superman has trunks or doesn't have trunks? The world loses their mind. What is our issue? Troy, you seem to have a very thought out analysis on this, so why don't you lead?
Yeah, my biggest thing with this is that people, that they come from a point of view of, I enjoyed the first iteration of this, and therefore nothing is ever going to change the way I felt about that. And I find it really interesting because, like, take Game of Thrones, for example. It's a book. There is no visuals in a book except the ones that are in your head. So yes, where I watched Fellowship of the Ring and the white horses coming in the river as she's taking, Frodo, right, to Rivendell, like, what I envisioned in my head when I read that in the book was pretty close to what Jackson put on the screen. So I was super happy with it. But other people that might have visioned that differently in their head might be super upset by that because it wasn't like it was in the book. How was it in the book? It was just written text. So the people that say it's different than the book drive me crazy because there's no pictures. So when you transition mediums from book to television or even television to theater, you have different storytelling capabilities. You get to show more visually, so you don't need the written word to describe it. You can show more in depth and size and sound when it goes into the theater than you can from a TV version. And even a video game version is completely different because you are playing the video game. The Last of Us, that comes up right now, is the whole video game you're playing. Well, most of the video game you're playing as Joel. So the only storytelling you can understand is the things that Joel can see. He's not going to see conversations that Tess has. He's not going to see conversations that Ellie has around the corner. He's not going to see conversations that Marlena has. So when you transition that to television, you're like, I can tell those stories now. Those changes are fine because I want the expandedness. I already saw the original story. Tell me more of the story. Just make sure you hit the points along the way. This week's episode of Last of Us is a perfect example. In the game, it takes place in Pittsburgh. This week, it takes place in Kansas City in the TV show. Am I mad about that? No, because the points that they showed are still the points from the game. It still got from A to B to C. It just was in Kansas City instead of Pittsburgh. So you have to understand the medium that you're being shown and understand that you have to make changes. Like everybody said, original Dune was terrible because they couldn't make at the time the ships to look like they are in the book, and they can't make the world look like it was in the book. Now, granted, Dune, the new movie, is the most probably closest to the book. It's boring as sin, but at least aesthetically it looks good, right? So that's what happens sometimes, is like if you get too close to the source material, it doesn't become entertaining in that medium.
Why do you think we can't walk away from it? I mean, does anybody have you still have whatever it is you love, right? So I'm trying to think.
I am super terrified. Like I'm really pleased so far with The Last of Us, but I am super terrified for what they're going to do to Horizon when it comes to Netflix. Both the first game, Horizon Zero Dawn, and then Horizon Forbidden West. Like those two games are so interesting story-wise that you could go 1,000 different directions, and it can go so bad really quick, and it can go so awesomely as well. So yeah, I am terrified of what it's going to do. Am I going to hate watch the show? No, I'm going to watch the show and enjoy it for what it is. It's a different form of art, unless it completely sucks.
To sort of echo what Troy is saying is that there's a healthy way of doing this, and there's an unhealthy way of doing this. So if you're going into a Marvel movie and you're expecting to see the story that you read on the comic book, you made a mistake. If you are going into a Star Wars movie and you're expecting to see absolutely everything that you read in the comic books or in the series, then you made a mistake. However, the other side of it is that when you're consistently seeing pitfalls in process and in storytelling and in just no respect or regard for the fandom and or what was created for the fandom, then you can honestly see it. Let's take Star Wars, for example. Star Wars is something that I've talked about at length and maybe ad nauseum, where they have completely ignored a whole universe. Now, do they have to really bring that whole universe into the stories? No, they really don't have to. But the thing that's really frustrating is they're trying to tell the story that was told in that universe, but they refuse to bring in any of the points that would have made it its own thing and much more interesting. In the books, you have a separate race of creatures that come into the galaxy, and they start taking over the galaxy left, right, and center, where it starts becoming this very scary, very real thing that you have to try to survive. And the Jedis are forced to learn how to use the Force as the Force, and not really whether or not the Force is light or dark, but that it's a tool that can be used to be able to move forward. It's not the Force that can be light or dark. It's the Jedi themselves. And what you start finding out is you start seeing Jedis use Force lightning, which has always been attributed to being dark things that dark Jedis only do. But you have light Jedis who are using Force lightning to get the job done, because it's the only way that they can get the job done to save people, which is ultimately their goal. So again, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, because that just puts me into a weird group. But there's always a healthy way and an unhealthy way of doing it. Give room for people who didn't share your vision to create a vision in which everybody might be happy, but don't expect to see everything you want to see.
And let's be clear, the healthy way is a Star Wars show with Admiral Thrawn. That's the healthy way.
Sorry, it's not Admiral Thrawn. It's Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I'm sorry.
You freaking plebeian.
I don't know what just happened. You guys both sound like total
At least
nerds.
I didn't say Asuki or whatever the hell Aaron said the other week.
Asawaka.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. Look, here's what I really want to expand on this question, because I'm guilty of it as well. We get caught up in our nostalgia. We get caught up in things that we love for whatever reason, whether it be a book, whether it be a movie that's being remade, whether it be something where a sequel's being done, more like reboot, remake, that sort of thing. And people will just lambaste the hell out of it if it's not very close to what they remember. And that's one where even I get confused as somebody who understands and appreciates nostalgia. On the same token, you already have that. Like, nobody is taking that away from you. Nobody is removing that from your memory. So if they make something that takes characters that you know and makes it a little different, it's not I'm not saying you don't have a right to your opinion, and I have strong feelings on this as well. but it doesn't mean that it's removing anything. So why are we so against anything different than what we already have gotten? That's a question I'm really like. It's a struggle I feel like every single fan has in some respect, where we have. I think everybody has
put
this.
That much. No, I'm sure they do, but I don't think people put that deep of thought into it. You know, ultimately we are selfish creatures and we want what we want. And if you don't give me the green thing in the green way that I want the green thing to be, then it's not going to make me happy. There are those of us who have the ability of saying, well, I already have the green thing. Let me see if this turquoise thing turns out to be just as good, if not better. It could be. Who knows? There's a lot of room in which you have to give things. But it goes back to also tribalism. There's a tribalism that goes into some of this too, where you have people who insist that things can only be one way and that's it. And that's, again, something that I think plays into this a lot.
You have to be open to possibilities. Like, I saw the female version of the Ghostbusters. It's okay. I also saw Ghostbusters Afterlife and said, that's the movie that should have gotten made, because that movie is great because it's endearing to what was originally the source material. And then you're able to watch that with your kids. And now the Ghostbusters generation carries on, right? Versus making something completely backdoor like the female version.
Sure, but that's a good example. Okay, so the female Ghostbusters that came out, everyone trashed it. That's not what Ghostbusters is. Why? You already have your Ghostbusters 1 and your Ghostbusters 2. And I liked the female Ghostbusters. I'm not going to apologize for it. I liked that movie. I enjoyed it. I think it's funny. Even Chris Hemsworth, who's ridiculous. I don't think it's more grounded maybe, but it's also a different kind of humor than the original two. It's its own thing. It's not doing anything to trash the memory that people have of the first movie. But yet everyone came after it like it insulted their grandmother. And that's just something, and I still to this day, I mean, that was years ago, and I still to this day do not understand the reaction that people had to that. I just do not, other than take the sexism obviously is there. That's definitely a small percentage, I'm sure. But I talked to a lot of people, and I feel like a lot of people felt like it wasn't their Ghostbusters, and nobody could really articulate why that is, other than it's not Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, and I guess they just wanted those guys back. They wanted a continuation of that world. But why? That's the kind of change I'm talking about. Like, people just would not accept it. They had to have what they already knew. They already knew. I think it has more to do with that, with it not being Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis in their roles, than it did the fact that they were female. And I know some people will cling to that, and I know some people, that's why they didn't like it. But I also think it's more about that, about them not being the original Ghostbusters, than it was anything else. It's versions change.
There's no tie to the other movies. It felt like it was like,
but it wasn't trying to be. It was trying to be its own thing. Like, why does it need to tie to the other movies? It's Ghostbusters. It's a reimagining of the property. That's what I'm saying. Why couldn't? And you have the same problem. We all have this problem with something, right? We all do. I'm not trying to pick on you or anyone else. We all have this problem, and I just don't know, why do we get so stuck on it? Like, it's just a different thing. Why we don't have to go see it? Is it because we love it so much? We want it done the way we want it done?
Well, the other component in which I think you're missing is that this probably has happened and did happen way before the internet. The only difference is the internet at this point has given everyone a platform in which they can jump on.
I get that. I'm not saying, I understand that.
Yeah, and so I'm just saying that it is just so much more obvious now than it's ever been, and you. Back then, it was easier to see that a lot of those people who were poo-pooing something because it's not theirs were a small minority. But the problem now is that small minority can keep on repeating themselves until they keep growing and growing and growing. And you know, all of a sudden, that small minority just becomes a shout box in which the only ones who can be right are them.
But what I'm saying, John, is I don't think it's what I'm talking about. I don't think it's a small minority. I think every single person listening and as a fan of film or television has at least one property they are very devout with. They firmly are against changes to it that aren't what they see as the natural extension of that property. And when they see creators doing something different with it, they naturally reject it or they refute it. They don't want anything to do with it. Now, sometimes that opinion might change when they see it and they're like, oh, all right, that won me over. But most of the time, I mean, we've seen it time and time and time again. Ben Affleck got cast as Batman and the internet broke, and that was a lot of people that felt that way. There was a lot of people that felt that way. So it happens all the time because we have this
Heath Ledger is Joker.
Heath Ledger's Joker. There's all kinds of scenarios that you could point to where this kind of thing has happened. And it's just, we get it in our head and we just can't change because we want something else. And I just don't know why can we not? We all claim, it's funny you bring up the internet. The internet claims to be the most open-minded people in the world. They aren't, because they're the first one to shut things down when they don't like it, right? That is not open-minded. Open-minded is open to anything and willing to listen and then make an informed opinion. But we all have shut things down that we thought it's against what I believe. I have very hard, fast beliefs on certain characters for certain reasons, and they are my reasons, but I have them, and everybody I know has them, whether they want to admit it or not.
Mine has been Star Wars, which the thing is about Star Wars is that I can say is that I at least gave the movies a chance to disappoint me regularly over and over again without fail. Mm-hmm. And then it's Godzilla. So Godzilla 1998 or 1999, that movie, I gave it a chance because when I originally saw the new design that the US came up with Godzilla, I was like, that looks not great. But I still went to the movie and I still sat down and I still tried to enjoy myself until it became Jurassic Park. And it's a combination of tribalism to now also the ease of access to these shout boxes of, hey, all these people have the same exact opinion I do, and none of them have seen it either, and I'm just going to go here and enjoy sitting in this sinkhole of garbage versus saying, all right, Ghostbusters, it's got an all-female cast. Why don't we just see what they're going to do? And they create something that's great, has its own story, has its own beats to it, and it doesn't feel like the same movie. It has some of the same things that the original movie has, but it does a very strong job of doing its own thing.
I mean, like Lord of the Rings is that way. And I think, like, when they said, hey, we're making Rings of Power, I'm like, that's awesome. It's continuing the story I know in the same universe with the same people, and it's going to bridge the tie. I think that's great. You come in and say, I'm going to make Lord of the Rings, but the hobbits are now giants. And I go, WTF, that's stupid.
Yeah. Right. Well, see, the thing about the Lord of the Rings, the first movies, okay, so you look at the Lord of the Rings and you go, okay, this is clearly created by somebody who has love and appreciation for the source material. And there are changes here, and we're okay with those changes here. Then you look at The Hobbit.
We're still against Tom Bombadil not being in the movie, for the record.
Okay.
For the record.
Missing the point. Now, then we go to The Hobbit, which they say... you've got the creator, the same guy again, saying, all right, I want to make 2 movies, no more than 2 movies. And then then the company says, no, we need 3. And he's like, no, this story is shorter than the other stories. We can do this story in maybe 1, but more likely two movies. No, we still need 3. And they throw in a bunch of stuff that they absolutely don't need, like the dwarf elf love triangle. We don't need that.
The entire third movie.
Yeah.
The entire third movie.
Mm-hmm. Except for the battle.
Which you could have gotten in if you got rid of the dwarf elf love triangle thing.
Yeah. Should have been.
And the really bad CGI.
So let's talk about, all right, a time where, and I mean, you really change your mind on something beloved to you. I mean, I'll give you one just to kind of start the ball rolling. And I've really thought deep about this. With all the dream casting of Idris Elba, people used to talk about, I used to have this very strong opinion that James Bond shouldn't be a person of color because the character in the books, which I read as a kid, he's quite clearly written a white guy with black hair and cold gray blue eyes. That's literally how the character is written. It's very detailed in many of the books. So to me, I was always of the mindset, just create another spy with a different number. No big deal. But I've come to realize with this and many other characters, if the race isn't integral to the character, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Even if it was written that way, it doesn't really matter. Changing sex, I would still say create a new character or just give a female the 007 moniker like they did in No Time to Die, because he is very clearly a man and it is inherent to his character of James Bond. But race doesn't matter with James Bond. And, it's something that I had to get over because I was an avid book reader and I love the character and I love the whole world and stuff. And I'm like, well, no, he's a white guy. Why are you changing it? Are you just changing it to change it? And I had to come to that realization myself, and I did. And I'm just wish I would have came to it sooner.
I mean, you talking about Idris Elba, The Dark Tower from Stephen King. I mean, when Roland Duchesne of Gilead, you're just like, he's a cowboy West, 1970s, white guy, And then when they say Idris Elba is going to play Roland in the Dark Tower movie, not a great movie.
But he was great. He was
great as I could not see anybody but him playing Roland going forward. So yeah, the color has nothing to do with the character. The character is a character.
But you know what's sad about that is if you try to have that like a real conversation, by God, don't do it on the internet, because people just jump on, well, it's a racial component, so therefore you're racist or da 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 da. No, that's actually a nuanced topic that we're actually having a real conversation of evolution on, and you just dilute it because you can't have a real conversation about it. That's the problem with the internet. We're having a real one here, but you can't have that on the internet.
And it's going to happen with Little Mermaid when Little Mermaid comes out.
Oh, absolutely. Oh God, I'm sure it will. That poor girl. I mean, I'm sure she's ready for it. I hope.
I'm not looking forward to that at all. Well, not because of the character or anything. I'm not looking forward to
the conversation.
Shitstorm.
Yep.
Yeah, the shitstorm.
Yeah, the shitstorm that's going to follow that.
I mean, the underwater sequence, the trailer. I mean, all of it looks great.
I hope she blows I hope she blows the water out of the theater. I just hope she knocks everybody's socks off. And what argument do you have now? What argument do you have?
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, there are cases where it's just people being racist. I absolutely understand that. But I'm saying we're having an actual nuanced conversation about something that has layers to it. Unfortunately, I feel like the internet just can't do that anymore. And I'm saying the internet as a collective.
That was the case with the third episode of Last of Us, right, John? Like those people that were saying, oh, it's different than the game. It's like, it's not because it was different from the game. It's because you're homophobic. That's why you're upset with it.
It's the exact same thing in which, if you were a fan of Schitt's Creek and loved the love stories you saw on that, and there were people who were fans of Schitt's Creek, but they kind of threw their arms up at that same kind of love story. They handled it in the same exact way. It was a love story for the sake of love stories, and it was a beautiful story being told. And I don't care if there's 2 tab A's there or 2 slot B's. It doesn't matter. It still does a very heartwarming job of telling a beautiful story.
It was a beautiful story.
I wanted to go back to how people's thinking are a little off on this. You talk about the character that Idris Elba's playing in The Dark Tower, how he's supposed to be a cowboy. In the books, he's a white guy and all that other stuff. The first cowboys were not white guys.
Great.
It makes more sense, honestly, to have Idris Elba playing the character. So, I don't know. You want to go more historically accurate? That's great. It works, and I appreciate it.
I think he was talking about in the book. I mean, it's a fictional book, so I don't even. But
well, no, it's a fictional book, but I'm just saying how it goes back to like the argument people have about why it can't be Idris Elba.
Oh,
he's a cowboy.
Well, it wouldn't be a black
guy.
cowboy. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's the argument. So something that changed my mind that was surprising to me. So I've talked about my love for the Dresden Files novels and how much they have brought a lot of joy and excitement to my life, and they've turned me into a pretty big reader in my advanced age, and I do love those novels. Now, the reason why I got into the novels was because of a short-lived television show on Sci-Fi or Sci-Fi Channel, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But it was a show based off the novels, and I really liked the show. I got into it. Paul Blackthorne as Harry Dresden was awesome, and everything about that show was just good to me. And that's why I started reading the books. I watched the first season, and it turned out to being the only season. I wanted to live more in those stories, only to find out that after reading those books, the series is practically unwatchable for me. I have tried to sit down and watch the series, and I just get mad because every single time I watch it, I'm watching it and I go, well, this is the story from this book. They just condensed it down to 45 minutes, and they could have done so much better storytelling if they would have just like made the whole season the book.
So it sounds like you started with things that you had come to the agreement. You've changed your mind on, but now you're back to where you won't bend on them.
Well, technically,
Okay. All right. Feel like you made it more complicated. What are some things that you won't bend on? Like some characters like you are just steadfast. I'll give you the one that comes to mind first. A long time ago on this very podcast, Justin McCumber, former host, I think it was episode 200, where we had a big debate on Spider-Man sexuality. And Justin McCumber and I had an argument over whether Peter Parker could be gay in some iteration. We had a big debate about it. I was steadfast then. I'm steadfast now that no, Peter Parker is a heterosexual, and it has decades of print from Marvel detailing that and his romances with Mary Jane and Gwen. I still believe that is the case to this day, and I don't believe we should be changing character traits like those just to appeal to the demographic. In my mind, when you start significantly defining character traits, because a lot of those relationships do define Peter Parker and his character and his evolution, and his romances with those women are very important to that evolving character, you are no longer honoring the character you say you love. So if you're going to do that, why not create a new character if that's what you're trying to do? That doesn't mean that there cannot nor should not be a gay Spider-Man or woman, whatever. I'm just saying not Peter Parker, because there are decades of stories that contradict that. What do you guys think? Go ahead. You can shoot me down if you want, Internet.
Like Optimus Prime?
Careful.
Optimus Prime has to sound like Optimus Prime. If Optimus Prime sounds any other way other than Optimus Prime,
he has to be Peter Cullen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be Peter Cullen doing the voice. I really like the dichotomy of this conversation at the moment, because Aaron comes in and he's all like, Peter Parker does not take. And you're all like, well, as long as the big robot sounds like the big robot, I'm okay. I love this. And I'm on your side. Peter Parker needs to be Peter Cullen. It can't be anybody else.
What?
I'm with you.
Peter Parker needs to be Peter Cullen. What?
Cullen.
I'm sorry.
Spider-Man
you're right.
just became like
Optimus Prime needs to be
out.
Optimus Prime needs to be
Avengers
Peter Cullen.
assemble.
Nobody else can do that. I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing Optimus Primal in the next movie coming up, because God only knows we're going to lose Peter Cullen any day now. But I'm going to do the sign of the cross right now, but with the wrong hand, because the other hand's next to the microphone and I don't want to punch it. I did that for somebody. Anyhow, I'm with you.
Yeah, it would sound
Way
different.
to think
Sound
deep.
weird.
Way to think deep, Troy. Way to think deep.
Well, I'm
really proud of you, Troy.
I'm not a comic book
The guy's
reader, so I
almost
don't
dead,
have like that.
But he's always got to be Optimus. I hope they start cloning his voice pretty
They
quick.
just bought James Earl Jones's voice. Like, he's always going to be Darth Vader. I mean, it's possible. Darth Vader would be one. Like,
I don't think
can't be
Hasbro
anybody
has
but
Star
James
Wars
Earl
money,
Jones.
though.
I don't think they do either. The movie theater might, though.
Although I mean, in fairness, Peter Cullen's no James Earl Jones.
This is true. This is true. All right, John. What about you? What do you stand fast on?
This is a hard one for me, because they're like, I feel like if I go to this well, I've mined this well for absolutely everything I can, but I'm going to have to go to this well. Luke Skywalker is not a cranky old man who decides to give up on the world. That's not who he ever was. And the fact
what about
that
through evolution, through time? You got missing years and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, at no point does Luke become anything less than trying to rebuild the Jedi world and trying to not be the only Jedi left out there. And he does not go and hide. He does not go and and become whatever it is he doesn't go and milk weird creatures for blue milk. That doesn't happen. Like, he becomes a beacon of hope in the galaxy, and a hope in which other people who share his talents or share some sort of talent like him end up going to follow him so that they can become these protectors of the galaxy again. So this whole idea where he's just like, I'm going to go and hide because I tried and then my nephew killed everybody. That doesn't happen.
But think about it from a Jedi perspective. Obi-Wan was training a young Padawan who decided to turn the wrong way and caused Obi-Wan to go flee and hide in the desert and live like a hermit. And then
Right.
Luke Skywalker, who was trained by Obi-Wan, tried to train somebody else who turned on him and turned to the dark side. And so therefore he went out into a grassy land and lived as a hermit. So he only
Right.
learned,
So he
just learned from his master.
Right. So he just Control-C, Control-V Obi-Wan when they already saw that was a bad idea, where he was supposed to be bringing back the great balance of the Force. If the great balance of the Force was to just quit when everybody decides to make it hard for him, then you don't deserve to be a Jedi, man.
So he's not bending on us. But it's over. He's dead now.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Because he reclaimed his Jedi-ness.
The 5 minutes in which he was amazing almost nowhere near makes up for the fact that he wasn't Luke Skywalker. Yeah, you can go ahead and think that sentence out. I go ahead, dare you.
Okay.
I mean, he's kind of a douche in Empire Strikes Back. He's like, I'm just going to disregard everything you told me and I'm going to go do what I want to do.
He was young.
He was young and dumb and full of force.
Super angry at parts of that fight when he was in the third movie. He always internally struggled with himself, no matter what it was.
Right. That's the curse of being a Skywalker.
Right.
Is that internal struggle. Leia has the same internal struggle. So that was the curse of being a Skywalker. He wasn't infallible. He was never an infallible person, but he wasn't supposed to be the person who gives up and rolls over, which is the thing that I hated about those movies, was that he was the person that gives up and rolls over and Control-C, Control-V's Obi-Wan's way, and then decides to go ahead and kill himself off or accidentally kill himself off. I don't know if he meant to do it or not, but he's just turns into dust in the middle, like when he's miles away. Granted, very cool the way he went, because, all right, well, we're going to force project ourselves to someplace else and win a badass fight. All right. Again, that's not what Luke Skywalker was ever supposed to be. He was supposed to usher in the new Jedi Order, and in that new Jedi Order, a whole new set of nightmares that we can all deal with. Not just one nightmare, a whole new set of nightmares.
Well, let's switch to what some of our listeners thought, why they think people hate change so much. Josh Steima says, fan entitlement has a huge part to do with it. People become so attached to certain iterations of characters that nothing can ever top it for them. That is usually before the new property is even seen. I try to hold out until actually seeing it for myself on whether the change has been for the better. Optimism and pessimism are perfectly welcome with any decision on a property, but at least give it a fair shake before burning it down. I agree with that. Unfortunately, most people apparently do not.
I try to agree with that. Like I said before, I went into every movie that I had my doubts about and still gave them my money, and I left that movie either okay or even more angry. So it happens, and I try to do the best I can. It's part of the gig, is to do the best we can to be that way about it. So I do agree with him. My comment comes from Jason Faltenek.
Mm-hmm.
Faltenek.
Good job.
Yeah, I did it. I was putting it together in my head, and it sounds almost like he's a Transformer himself. We're asking the wrong question. The real question is, why are we rebooting so many things, many of which are already beloved? When there are enough content from bestseller lists that have never been made in the movies or TV to fill primetime lineups for years, I'm not mad necessarily because they've ditched the Trunks. I'm mad because the Battle of the Planets movie. Oh, I'm mad because I want the Battle of the Planets movie. I want that movie too, or a movie based off half a dozen books and characters that I love. He's absolutely right. We have so much content out there in the world in which we can start creating stories from just about anything to tell new stories or fresher looks at stories that have already been told with different characters or whatnot. So I really like the idea of stop mining the thing that everyone knows, where we can do what we did with Harry Potter, where a few people knew the stories and loved the stories, and then they turned it into a movie series, and all of a sudden we made one author a gajillionaire. You can do this exact same thing to somebody else's life by taking their work, throwing it into the limelight, and creating a whole new fresh world that way.
2 points. One,
Amazon, do the Dark Tower.
hang on.
Amazon,
2
do
points.
the Dark Tower.
2 points. They are doing the Dark. Mike Flanagan's part of it.
Wow.
So 2 points. One,
Supposedly.
the idea that we're remaking, rebooting, that's all we're doing, that's just not true. There's tons of original movies and TV shows out there, a lot of original movies, and people don't go see them because they are watching things that they know. That's my point number 2. Why are we doing it? Because of name recognition. Because in a sea of 500 plus scripted shows every year and hundreds of movies every year, that stands out more when you have name recognition. That's why. So if people would take people that would stop saying, why they're rebooting everything, and would take more chances on original movies and properties, there would be more original properties. It's really a people problem. We create this problem. We, all of us listening, we're the reason why it happens. That's the answer to the question. It's our fault.
Oh, yeah, I do agree with that part, but I like the rest of his points.
I like this point. I'm just saying, whenever people tell me that's all that's out there, that's just not true. That is not true. It's not all just reboots and sequels and all that stuff. There are plenty of original things out there every single week, hundreds of movies every year, TV shows all over the place. There's a lot of original content. People just go back to what they know.
I think it's because my time is precious and I don't want to take a chance on a flyer and be disappointed or get it canceled or be the OA.
Don't. Troy,
you have anything from a listener?
Yes. Carlos Martinez said, I used to listen to this terrible podcast where the host remade everything. Supposedly right. Anyway, they asked a very good question. Anyone looking to alter, update, reboot, remake a property should, but typically don't, ask themselves, that being, should we do this? Just because they can doesn't mean they should. It's one thing to do this with a little-known IP like Battlestar Galactica. Ron Moore improved that universe drastically. Trying the same with an IP that's basically a household name is quite another feat. Look at the mess that is Star Wars. Star Wars. I like that. That's a fun play. So as long as the changer makes logical sense and it fits the lore, canon, and characters, I don't care. That's kind of my stance. Like if you're expanding on the existing lore, it's fine. Rings of Power, fine. The new Emperor President Snow movie for the Hunger Games, fine. Like those are stories in the universe. Let's tell them. It's interesting.
But just stop mining nostalgia. Like don't remake Goonies.
Yeah, there's no reason to remake Goonies. Do the Goonies movie that we came up with and remake this movie right, where they're older and it's their kids that are doing the thing.
People would watch it.
Aren't they making that one now?
No,
I don't know.
It's all nothing confirmed on what they're doing.
It's it's done. It's done. That's why I'm not giving into the Dark Tower until I actually see a trailer.
Fair enough. And the podcast he's talking about is Remake This Movie Right, and there's still 60 episodes out there in your podcast feeds if you want to check it out. It was a good show.
And they're fabulous. Fabulous.
Good, fun show to do. All right, well, share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group or on Twitter @BuyPopcorn. Our website is thehollywoodoutsiders.com. You can find John's artwork on Insta and Twitter @RJohnDraws. Amanda, if you can find her, she's on @SinkIntoThis. Troy is @Troy Heinrichs, and I am @Aaron Smirks. And Troy and I both do the Blacklist Exposed, which is coming back very, very soon. And I'm also on Presenting Hitchcock. Now
final season.
Final season of Blacklist is coming out. Thank God. Thank you, God. Thank you. Now in line with the topic this week, take a beloved property or character of yours and tell us how you would change that property or character to reach a completely demographic.
I don't know why I went this way. and I didn't take it as big of a property as I probably should have, but I thought this was going to be great. Let's take the show Doomsday Preppers, right? And instead of making it a show about people who are getting ready for a doomsday situation, let's do it like Hoarders, where we're dealing with people with some sort of mental illness and how we are working through that mental illness.
I've never seen Doomsday Preppers. I don't even know what that is.
It's a show in which people are creating bomb shelters and
okay. All right. Interesting.
Isn't it just hoarders but underground?
technically.
Because they're hoarding toilet paper.
All right, Troy, what do you got? That's interesting.
I picked Survivor, longest running game show, almost close to The Price is Right. But they used to, like, in the early days, went to like different locations. Now they're just in Fiji all the time. So I want a version where they have to survive on the streets of a city. How do they survive? How do they survive the concrete jungle? Right? And then the challenges are like scavenger hunts for a much needed item or tool in order for them to actually survive on the streets.
Here we are. We just dropped these 10 white people. These 10 white people from an affluent neighborhood in the middle of Skid Row with nothing but
the clothes on their back and the one item they brought.
The clothes on the
Well, they'd be dead. I'd watch it, though. I would watch it. Bye-bye. See ya.
They live down in the subway tunnels with all the people down there.
Apparently this whole topic I thought way deeper than either one of you ever did. But I would remake Indiana Jones as either an African, an Asian, or a Hispanic man, because Indiana Jones is my favorite character, and the reason being that we've already got the Harrison Ford versions. That's not going anywhere. So he kind of like traversed through history as a white man. I want to see the numerous aspects of history through other cultures and historical items they might have worshipped, things like that. And I would love to see that brought to life through an archaeologist based on that historical record. Then that way I never lose the films that I've loved over the course of my life, but I'm exposed to different cultures and different history. And I think that's important. And it also would be a lot of fun.
I mean, obviously you could also do Short Round, because Short Round lends himself obviously to a spinoff with Ke Huy Quan back in the limelight. I think it's a perfect time to do something like that. But you could also just do Indiana Jones that way.
That's one of the few things I'm appreciating about watching the Disney show National Treasure.
Because she's Hispanic?
She's Mexican. Not only do they deal with a lot of the different issues that she has to deal with as a Hispanic person in the United States, but they also deal with a lot of the imagery and iconography and treasures of people who were native to the U.S. prior to it being in the U.S. So it's very cool in that respect. I'm not saying it's a great show. I'm just saying that makes it very cool.
Yeah, that's a good aspect to it. I mean, and that's a way to teach kids history and get them interested to explore history of other cultures.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that I've always liked about National Treasure in general, is because
people,
and actually,
guess what, guys? We have a constitution. What? Yeah.
What?
Nick Cage stole it. Go read up. It's an important document.
Like, what are these amendments thing? I only know one or two of them.
Why does it smell like lemon juice?
Right. Anyhow, like but the aspects of hearing these different stories that are from history, or even the made up stories from history, is pretty cool. It's also why I liked Falling Skies so much, because Falling Skies, you have a history teacher teaching you about how the U.S. and how the world dealt with war in this scenario in which they're fighting aliens.
Until the final season, and then you were kind of like, where is this going?
Right.
Star Child.
Well, interesting conversation.
Went totally V on it.
Totally V.
I love V. I miss V so much.
The first two seasons are great, though.
Oh, you're talking about the new one? I don't give a shit.
No, Falling
about
Skies.
No, he's
Falling
talking about
Skies.
Falling Skies.
Oh, they're talking about V.
Nobody would ever make that mistake
Okay.
about the V's TV series. Let's talk about a hard line against something.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like, that new TV series sucked. What are you talking about? That's not good. I like Marina Baccarin, but nope.
I was going to say, we were watching it for Elizabeth Mitchell and Marina. That's the only reason we were watching it.
Yeah, and even that wasn't enough. I couldn't keep going with it. Like, nope. I'm going to go watch the 80s versions again for the 15th time.
Only the 15th time? You got to get those numbers up.
Well, do we count Independence Day?
because we should.
That was great.
All right, that's it for this episode. Remember, guys, the next time you head to a theater or stream comfortably on your couch, buy popcorn.
Bye-bye.
Wonder what Mark Singer's doing now.
I don't know, looking grizzled as all hell.
I think Home Depot gives him a break.
Wow.